So
Yeah.
what was it about esports in particular that attracted you? Was it just kind of like happenstance that it was COVID, so that's all we were doing? I mean, I
Yeah.
hadn't played video games in a long time. My first COVID like impulse purchase was I'm gonna get PS4, I'm gonna get PlayStation Plus, and I'm just gonna game. So
Yeah.
was it the same for you, or is this something that goes for a little further back?
Man, so I've always played video games as a outlet to get away from reality, right? So I remember I moved to Texas back in 2010, and I played video games before that, but it was more so a fun time to hang out with my friends. Then when I started playing in 2009, 2010, and so on and so forth, it was an outlet. It was like, man, I just want to play. I want to forget about anything else that's happening. I just want to play. I just want to be a kid again. So, I was always kind of hooked to gaming as an outlet, as a coping mechanism, if you will. It was that, music, and taking a walk. And then, yeah, like when COVID happened, that's all we were doing. And I was alone for a couple of weeks. And I kid you not, brother, I would order. I don't know if you're familiar with Marcos. I know you're in a different state, but it's just imagine me ordering pizza, a large pizza, every
Okay.
single day for a week. And I would literally, man, I would play for like 16 hours, sleep for 4, maybe do something else with the rest of my time, and then just get back on the game because I was just grinding because there's nothing else to do. And it was
Hmm.
fun. I was pursuing a dream of being a professional, and I had so much time to make up for that everyone else was light years ahead of me in terms of skill set, the IQ, the animations, the knowledge of the ins and outs of the game. So it was a memorable time for sure. Definitely took a toll on my mental, no question, but sure it all worked out. And plan C, which is being a broadcaster, so I can't complain. But yeah, always loved sports and therefore just loved video games in itself.
And is this the broadcasting that you do? Is this a full time career for you at this point?
It's not. I inshallah hope to make it that in the next couple of years. It's something that I have as it's in the middle of like part time and full time. So for right now, the NBA 2K League is in the off season. So our season just ended in August, and so now we have different tournaments, amateur tournaments, draft eligible tournaments that different NBA teams host. So I'll participate in that. And then we actually, I'm not sure when you're going to air this, but first week of October, we have the eFIBA tournament that just tipped off. It's the second season. And that's pretty much where you have 61 countries from across the world that are competing within their respective regions. There's like 7 of them. And then the best teams within those regions go through a couple of qualifiers, and they will play in Sweden towards the end of November for 50,000 euros. So it should be an exciting. So those are like my 2 main clients, I guess you can call it. But I'm hoping to kind of build enough of a resume, enough of a reel to call maybe some G League stuff, maybe some college stuff. That way it's like, hey, I can translate my esports skill set to real life basketball and kind of have that same enthusiasm and professionalism on it as well. So at the moment, in the middle of part time, full time, but inshallah, hoping to make it full time, whether it's in the esports world
Hmm.
or real life sports would be amazing as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you called a real life basketball
Yeah.
tournament recently, but as far as the esports go, I mean, how is that? How's it the same as a live event, and how is it different? Because I'm really curious about the kind of the ins and outs and the technicalities and the semantics and stuff that
Yeah.
go behind it. Yeah, behind the production of it.
On the esports side, it's more animation based, right? And so what I mean is if you attack, let's just take 2K. So we'll stick to basketball. We'll stick to 2K at the moment. It's an animation based game. So if you're driving to the paint at a certain angle with a certain player with a certain attribute, you can go ahead and press a button a certain way, flick the stick a certain way, you'll get a certain animation, which will lead you to success. So it's a bit more predictable in that sense. Sorry about that. It's a bit more predictable in that sense, and you kind of know folks' tendencies and things like that. But you can carry that on to real life sports as well, right? Like how many times have we seen if you're watching an NFL game and the broadcaster's like, hey, here's a graph of any time he goes right, his success rate is XYZ, right? So it's to me, and I'm not in the world of real life sports, and maybe I'm being a bit unfair, but to me, it's quite similar. There are a lot of threads and principles that you can take from one to the other. You want to build the excitement. You want to be the eyes and ears of the folks at home that are watching that just weren't able to make it. So it's the same for me. Matter of fact, I had a buddy of mine who was watching the real life broadcast, who is my co-caster from the league, Harris, he texted me, he's like, dude, you call the game just like it's an esports. And it's like, that's the only way I know how to. But it's also, we're building excitement for the folks at home, and we're just calling it like we see it. We're providing some color, background on the players, on the teams, the history of it, how they got here, what's happening on the court, the why, the what, and how. So it's quite similar, in my opinion.
Hmm. I could see that. I think, I mean, all sports in general, I feel like there is a similar cadence to the
Yeah,
announcing. There's, the play by play and the color guy, and you're trying to, again, establish that excitement, set the scene, uh, explain the scenarios of what's
yeah,
happening, understand the tendencies. I mean, you brought up the graphs that come up. I'm sure it's the same thing.
yeah,
Just like you want to study, Patrick Mahomes when he's rolling left, right, or
exactly.
his passing chart and stuff like
Exactly. Or
that.
like a shot chart on a basketball
Hmm.
game, right? Like, hey, they love to do this pick and roll here, whatever the case may be. Everyone has tendencies. Matter of fact, even you and I have tendencies. I can speak for myself. I just did a podcast maybe 4 days ago, and I watched it back. And my tendency, my crutch phrase, if you want to call it that, is this, that, and the other. And I said it 11 times in a span of 40 minutes. So when you post this, I'm going to watch it back and see how often I say it. But if we were playing a drinking game, I definitely would be knocked out by like the fourth one. So we all have tendencies, is my point. It's just, you can translate that to a podcast, a person, video games, or real life sports.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a pin in that. I'm gonna come right back to this. But
Yeah.
as far as the tendencies and things like that, and getting to know the players, so do you guys do like a pregame prep? I know they talk about the primetime games. They're always like, oh, we had a meeting with this offense coordinator and this guy and this guy. We got to know him a little bit. Do you guys do the same thing leading up to the events and
Absolutely.
speaking to the teams and all that?
Absolutely. So when it comes to the 2K League, my role is a bit different in the sense of I become a sideline reporter. So that's where thankfully I know some of the players and I have relationships with them. But yeah, when we're in person, and they're practicing, they're hanging out, I'll just talk to them, and I'll make sure it's very clear that, hey, this conversation is either on the record or off the record. It's amazing how their tone and their answers change. But yeah, we'll definitely prep with the players, trying to get some insights. They're on Twitter, so we kind of see the subtweets they're throwing out if they're playing their former team or whatever may be happening there. And then us as broadcasters, our team also has a prep meeting as well. So matter of fact, we had our first day of eFIBA just yesterday on the 3rd of October. So we had 55 games go down. I went ahead and recorded all the stats so we know, hey, here's where everyone stands, so that when we broadcast again, we have 100 nuggets to pick from in terms of what we can talk about. So another example is on the 12th of October, our broadcast for eFIBA starts at 7 o'clock in the morning, right? That's when the broadcast starts, Eastern time for me. But I'm going to be online at 4 o'clock for like a simple tech check, but also to meet up with my castmate, Nate, and say, hey, here are my notes. What are you looking at? Here's the schedule. Let's make sure we're on the same page because, you want to be prepared and not just kind of wing it, especially
Hmm.
when you've got so many eyes on you as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you never know who's watching, right? You could have
Yeah.
someone else who's may not be looking to hire you now, but they're like, oh, you know what? I could really use this person for X, Y, Z. And that's honestly how I've gotten as far as I have in the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, everything you do is being recorded. Everything you do is
Exactly.
it's almost like a live audition, which I'm sure can
Yeah.
be quite nerve wracking and stuff.
Yeah.